Hello everybody and welcome to another list video here at Playing Board Games. Today, I'm talking about 5 cards that I would love an upgrade for. These are specifically level 0 cards, which I did not put here, but I probably put somewhere in the thumbnail or the video title. So, I thought this would be a fun video, because number one, it approaches the topic of what is a level 0 card. Obviously, level 0 cards are really easy to know what they are because they have 0 level on them. Like, oh, how you actually could see Russ's hair flying past the camera there. That's crazy. So, like, that's the easy part about level 0 cards. But then we look at, like, the design of level 0 cards that still have not seen an upgrade. So an example of this is, something like Eureka, right? Like a skill card that is... like a level 0 card, I feel like what they are is it's a card that you're going to eventually want to remove from your deck, or the card is just good enough that it's there forever, right? Or it's a card that you're going to be upgrading, right? That's kind of like what a level 0 card is. Do you want to sit down, buddy? So that was kind of fun to explore because there's a lot of cards. When I was going through this list, I was thinking like, hey, these level 0 cards, oh, you want a little kiss? Okay. These level 0 cards don't need upgrades for, or alternatively already have upgrades. So my philosophy for when I was making this list video was to explore the idea of making cards that aren't really played better, or alternatively, going deeper onto archetypes that already exist or may not already exist that I think could present a cool type of thing for some future exploration. So that was my very long-winded intro to talk about level 0 cards, but why don't we dive in and look at our first card here, which is Connect the Dots. So notably, this is a pretty unplayed Seeker card from the Circle Undone. It's a 4-cost event. That's crazy expensive. This came out with Joe Diamond, and the idea was that this 4-cost, in theory, would be less impactful because you're playing it off your hunch deck. However, the thing about your hunch deck is that it turns out your hunch deck is pretty bad when your entire hunch deck is reactive. And Connect the Dots is a very reactive card. And because of that reason, the card generally... Come back up here, buddy. I don't trust you down there. The card generally doesn't actually, like, work in the hunch deck. So what we're then left looking at is this 4-cost card that discovers 2 clues. And the downside, the downside of that in the Seeker class is that you can just kind of do it better. And that's kind of like the issue, right? That the card is just kind of outclassed by the general ability of the Seeker to get clues, which isn't great. Like, that's not like a great place to be in. So I think that Connect the Dots reads really well, right? But the issue is just that, like, it's not worth doing because of the cost. The cost is very prohibitive, sorry. And, like, yes, like, there's... Again, it's a very reactive card, and you need to have some foresight to set it up. But realistically, it's actually not that hard to get this card doing the value. I think the thing that shuts it off completely is just the 4 cost. So, yes, like, this could just be tabooed. But I would actually love... I think that the insight and spell slinging... Seeker class, like that slice of the Seeker class, I think is a very cool card design, and I want to see like more of like that archetype supported in the future. We're seeing some of that with Agatha Crane. She seems to be based on insights and events and all that, so I think that's going to be a really cool thing to see the rest of what Drowned City brings out in the next coming weeks of the spoiler season. But I think just generally going forward, this is a really nice part of the Seeker class that I would like to see supported more. And I think an upgraded Connect the Dots would potentially help there, because then additionally, say it was like, for example, level 2, we have like a lot of people who can take advantage of it. I'm a believer that Down the Rabbit Hole is going to continue to just slowly swallow up the card pool, because reprints and upgrades are good to include in boxes because it saves FFG on art money, right? They don't need to commission new art. However, I mean, it's also good for the community because people like upgrading or having downgraded versions of their cards. But Down the Rabbit Hole is still going to make this a little bit like of a thing. And while I don't think that Down the Rabbit Hole should just be removed yet, I do think that like we're close to that breaking point of it. So, going on that point, connect the dots. If we had level 2 version, we would see playing like Daisy and Luke. Anyone who can splash into, like, even like Rex Murphy could take advantage of it. I think it's a very powerful effect that is just kind of like stopped by its cost. And like we see like Stirring Up Trouble at 1 experience. I think that maybe like push it a bit more to get to like 2 experience I think would be really cool. But I would just love to see this card be playable, because every time I look at it, I'm like, this is like a really cool idea within the Seeker class that is unfortunately just gated by the 4 experience cost. And it's a little bit more interesting than just the traditional Book v Shroud that Seekers love to do. Alright, so that was kind of like a little bit of a boring one. But let's get into our next one here, which is everybody's favorite proxy backer, Knife. So, the reason why I would love to see an upgrade for this is because the community has done it so much. Just like the community has designed a lot of custom parlay investigators that we did eventually see in an actual official box, I think it's really cool that the community designs all these knife ideas. So like the idea is upgraded versions of Knife. Sometimes people make them in like the Guardian class, sometimes people make them in the Survivor class. I'd even live to see honestly a Rogue Knife. While I don't think like a Mystic or a Seeker Knife makes sense, I think like having a knife that can upgrade into 3 different classes and not like on a multi-class thing, like literally there's like six cards in your expansion that are upgraded versions of Knife, I think could potentially open up some really cool design space. In one of our custom card challenges, Beard designed a Survivor Knife that pinged when it entered play or was discarded from hand, one of those two. And I thought the design, while pretty powerful, was really compelling, right? And like, Yorick can play Knife. Yorick's not, like, Knife's not a great card, but right now Yorick could kind of play Knife. And I would love to see this card, while not necessarily matching the tempo of certain weapons, because I think some weapons, their damage output is kind of just insane at this point, having a knife that like is kind of like a bit fun to play around, I think would be really cool. What I ultimately really like about Knife's design as a weapon, and yes, I'm going to actually talk about Knife as a legitimate card here, so get ready. The thing I really like about Knife's design is that it kind of actually promotes sort of event-based fighting. You're not playing Knife for that top action. You're just not. You're playing Knife for that bottom action, and while it is ultimately inefficient, the value of the card changes when you kind of just treat it as a 1-cost 2 damage of event that you kind of just have to like spend an action earlier to do. That is why it is playable in Yorick, and it actually is like functional in Yorick. Not great, again, but functional. And a big reason for that is the fact that Yorick can skimp on that first action cost and like use it for just the event. Because a 1-cost event that would give you +2 and deals 2 damage is super playable. We actually are going to have a 0-cost event that does something similar later in this actual list video. So that's why like I would love to see that kind of explored and made, okay buddy, explored and made more viable in an upgraded form. Also just to see, like, again, I love, it's like they do the same thing with Sled Dogs. Spoiler alert, Sled Dogs isn't on this list, but I love when the custom content creators make custom content that kind of explores different class upgrades for the same cards. I think that is really cool. All right, next one we got here is Trusted. So Trusted is a 1-cost fast attached to an ally as you control. Attached asset gets +1 health and +1 sanity. These next 3 cards that we're going to be talking about on this list, a lot of the philosophy for my reason for including them in this list is the idea of making new archetypes or exploring more viability in archetypes that already exist. Trusted is, I think, while not an exciting card, certainly a very strong card in the decks that want to take advantage of it. So my philosophy is, can we make Trusted work in the decks that it generally doesn't work in better, right? So like the idea of Trusted is that not necessarily that it gives you more soak. It does give you more soak. But what Trusted generally does is kind of the same thing as the Star, the tarot card from Return to Circle Undone. It gives your cards that take damage or horror to do an effect, do that effect more. So an example of this that's really easy and really common is Beat Cop 2. Greta Wagner from the Investigator starter decks. Field Agent from Scarlet Keys, right? These all take damage to do a positive effect, right? Or horror in the case of Field Agent. So that is kind of like where Trusted lives the most common right now. But I was kind of thinking, there's a card in Edge of the Earth called Protecting the Anernic. And while ultimately, as we see from that card, so what that card does, if an ally asset you control dies, you can either return it to your hand or like draw 3 cards, something like that. I don't know off the back of my head. It's a reactive card when one of your ally assets is defeated. It's in the Mystic and the Seeker class, but I do think that the Guardian class would kind of fit with that. So my kind of thought process is we have Well Maintained, which is a card that when you lose an item asset, you get it, like you get that item asset back, right? I think that's what Well Maintained does. But I thought the kind of same philosophy to the Guardian allies would be really cool in an upgraded version of Trusted. So just imagine it says everything on the card right now. Like, just say I'm not gonna try to balance the experience here, but like, what if that this card also returned an ally asset when it's defeated to your hand, right? So kind of like Protecting the Anernic, but you don't have that value that you get from like the Seeker draw card part of it. I think that ultimately does fit with the Guardian class, and I think like having a guard dog that can die and then come back to your hand, I think is like a really cool sort of flavor that an upgraded Trusted could explore, and I think that would be really awesome to see. I think that ultimately, and I don't think this is a controversial opinion, it might be, because there's some staunch defenders out there. I do like the Guardian class, I do, don't get it twisted. But I do think that the Guardian class has ultimately seen the least amount of like exciting innovations in terms of their like designs, right? And I think this is just due to the very nature of what the Guardian class is. But I do think that stuff like this, that is like kind of it, like what it basically comes down to is I think the Guardians need to start bending the rules a little bit, you know? They play very fair, and I think that we need to start doing things to give them advantage or abilities that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. And I think a big thing of returning defeated cards to your hand is something that I think would be pretty cool to see, and kind of like start giving that Guardian that card advantage in a way that isn't normal for the Guardian class, and also because the Guardian class generally isn't the class of card advantage. We're going to keep the Guardian train going with Toe-to-Toe. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Justin, you love this card, and it's already pretty damn good. You've said in the past that this is a card that at level 0 will stay into your Guardian decks until Scenario 8. And Russell, it's true. I think Toe-to-Toe is a very good card that generally stays in my Guardian decks until Scenario 8. As I talked about earlier, with Connect the Dots and also Knife, I really like event-based combat. I think event-based combat is at the point now where I think it's actually like super viable and also just like super fun to do. It allows you to, instead of running like a weapon that's bad because you kind of just need to run a weapon that's bad, it allows you to play these cards to fill the gaps when you don't have those weapons. With that said, I don't want to make Toe-to-Toe better in just like a number thing, right? I don't want to be like, it's a 5-cost card, it deals +2 or +3 damage, you know? Like a 5 experience card that deals +3 damage. What I would love to see from an upgraded Toe-to-Toe is kind of a further embracing of the Thorns archetype, right? So it could be something like even something as simple as to like basically that paragraph, copy and paste it, right? So like my idea for like an upgraded Toe-to-Toe is that either the one enemy attacks you twice and then you deal more damage, or alternatively it's like fight. This attack deals +1 damage, yada yada yada, and then fight. This attack deals +1 damage, yada yada yada. And then it's kind of like fitting into that same space that 1-2 punches, where it allows you to like punch. I think that'd be a really cool form of Guardian management, while also still increasing the ability of the Thorns archetype to do more cool things, and also just like trigger the Thorn stuff more and more and more. Now, again, you might be thinking, hey, Justin, this does seem like it could be a pretty powerful effect. And yes, again, but I go to my statement that I was just saying, which is that I do think that the Guardian class needs a little bit of love in regards to doing things that are kind of just like more positive tempo. Like, I think it's such a sad state of a class when a lot of people who are big... I mean, I think the Guardian class is cool. Again, I think that they're a very fun class, and I gave them less credit than they actually deserved in terms of their ability to have fun playing the game of Arkham. All right? However, I think a class is in a sorry state when everyone is like, they got Blessed Blade 4, this class is popping off, right? Like, yes, from a Spike standpoint, for me, Blessed Blade 4 is a really cool card and really fun card because it just wins the game without you having to think about it. Sorry, Russ is in the closet right now, so if you hear any rustling, that's what it is. But like, to me, I think that's the Spike side of me loves Blessed Blade 4, but from like a design standpoint, if I'm looking at this just like analytically, I think unfortunately the Guardian class is kind of just not keeping up with what we've seen in the other classes are doing. And I think again, by breaking the rules, they can do that. And I think a toe-to-toe that deals you and you're able to like fight like 2 enemies at once but still trigger your thorn effects multiple times, I think would be really cool. If you don't know what thorn effects are, I should have specified this earlier, but there it is, like whenever you like, it's like guard dogs or like the thorns on your hunter's armor, right, where when you take damage you get a positive effect or deal damage back to the enemy. All right, I'm gonna just grab Russ from the closet, so I'm gonna pause the video here, so 1 second. Okay, let's go on to our last card here. And this one also might seem a little bit crazy. Ritual Candles. Okay, so I also think that Ritual Candles are a very playable card and in a very good place. Okay, I'm going to just say that right now. However, I do think that... I got a cool idea for an upgraded Ritual Candles that could be explored. I recently recorded a game with Eric that we're going to see on the channel soon called Neon Hope. This is a game that is heavily inspired by Arkham Horror. It's a story-based card game where you are in a cyberpunk environment, and you are basically like, there's an agenda that advances, and then there's like an act and an agenda, right? That's stripping it down to like pretty like quick descriptions. But they had a mechanic that was basically like, they called it like Reckless or something, where you revealed additional tokens, and if you revealed certain tokens, you got positive effects. Reminds you of something, doesn't it? Reminds you of the Mystic class. However, like, there's like, unless I'm mistaken, like unless I'm just having like a huge blind spot, I can't think of a card that like, as a test, it's like reveal an additional token for a positive effect, right? Like, it's like generally you're revealing additional tokens because you're fishing for tokens, right? But I think that this idea of like the Reckless mechanic that was in Neon Hope, which was really fun, Eric had a great time playing with it. I can't really think of a comparison that exists in Arkham Horror, right? So then I was thinking, like, what if there was an upgrade for Ritual Candles that still, again, had the same text on it for the top part, right? But then, like, what if there was, like, an archetype? Because this also is nice because it can also work with, like, the Curse archetype or even, like, the Olive McBride archetype. Again, like, this is still, like, there's no balance behind these, right? But, like, what if there was, like, a positive effect? So it's like a reaction. After you reveal 2 or more tokens in the same test, exhaust Ritual Candles for a positive effect, right? Maybe as simple as draw a card. Maybe gain a resource, right? Maybe like you could put like, it's like, what if like there was just something like that? And like, I guess like the 5 cards I would love an upgrade for, the Ritual Candles is kind of here, not due to the nature of the card itself. Albeit, I do think that actually synergizes, right? And while it's not here for the nature of the card itself, it's here because I think it's the closest to it. It's like kind of like the card that made me think, hey, I would actually love to see this mechanic within Arkham Horror, the card game. How it works, so like, and then like when I said like they kind of like complement each other, like Ritual Candles is already innately making those symbol tokens easier to deal with, right? And then, like, the idea is that then the punishment is less bad for revealing multiple tokens. And, like, I think it rewards, like, a combo-based nature, which I think could be really fun to explore in the Mystic class. And also kind of, like, you'd be surprised the number of pieces that already exist that you would, like, synergize with this kit really nicely. So, if I am, like, mistaken and there is a card that kind of, like, fits into that nature where you reveal multiple tokens, not as, like, a side effect of a card, but like as a, you get a reward for doing it. It's kind of like what I'm looking for. Like, so an example of that, the one from Neon Hope was like, if you take this test, reveal 2 tokens. If you reveal a symbol token, you get an extra success on your thing, right? So it's like something like that. And I guess like the closest is kind of just like Jim Culver, right? Or like Father, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is just a crazy blind spot. But I do think what's really cool is what this made me realize is the amount of design space that is still yet to be explored in Arkham Horror. And another one that there was a custom player card expansion I did a showcase of that had an entire Mystic archetype that was about cards leaving play, right? Which is a very Mystic thing, whether it be like by sacrificing them, by Dexter Draking them, by like other sort of effects that, you know, like you can like bounce them to your hand. That is such a cool Mystic archetype that I want them to explore more. And I think there's a lot of neat stuff in the Mystic class that could be touched into because of that. Yeah. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was a little bit of a weird video because, like, it was kind of like each card just generally had like its own tangent about Arkham design, but that's kind of like really what these are. This is not like about the cards, right? This is not like about I love toe-to-toe and I want an upgraded version. But it goes back to the philosophy I had at the start of the video of what is a level 0 card and what does a level 0 card represent. And I think that upgraded cards from level 0 cards can represent new design space. So that was kind of the idea behind this video for some of these cards. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll be back very soon for another list video. We actually want to have a list video next week. I know, crazy. But because it's Boxing Day, we're going to have a tier list video for you. And sometimes that's kind of like a list video, but just a lot longer. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. Huge thank you to all of our acolytes, our Seekers of Carcosa, our Wizards of the Order, our Knights of the Inner Circle for supporting the channel. This has been a great year of making. I mean, this, I think, like I said, I think this is our last Arkham video of the year. I want to thank you all for your support. We'll see you all very soon, and thanks for watching. Have a good one, and as always, a GG's.